22nd, 2022. We are continuing the Board of Finance budget hearings for fiscal year 2022, 2023. And we do have a few items on the agenda that will move up. Elections, registrar, and city clerk we'll address first, and then we'll start top of the item of Human Resources Department. So at this point, I'd like everyone to turn to page 14 and pages will handle election expenses and register of voters. And I think most everyone has been before the board previously. Hi, Carrie. If you're certainly welcome to make a statement if you'd like. And if not, we'll just open it up to the Board of Finance members who may have a question or comment.
That sounds like a good plan to me. Hi, everybody. I'm Carrie Rowland. I'm one of the two registrars of voters. Deborah Fellenbaum is on here with us. And obviously Karen Fortunati works with us too when we're dealing with the elections account. So would you like to start with elections or would you like to start with the registrars, Brian?
Why don't we start with elections and then we can move on to registrar.
Okay. Karen, do you want to make a statement or should I just mention about the possibility of primaries?
You can take it.
Okay.
I'll rely on you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So just in a nutshell, basically what we need to know is that there are certainly potential for August primaries this year, given the gubernatorial race. In particular, the Secretary of the State's position is going to be an open position, so it's possible we have both Democratic and Republican primaries. If that happens, 4 years ago it happened, not for that race, but for a different race, and we expensed close to $117,000 in that fiscal year because of the primary. So because we're at $105,000 that we're asking for, I'd like to see some money put back into the account. I know that doesn't happen very often because I do think it's very likely. But please know, as we've said many times before, that if there is a primary, and especially if there's primaries for both the Republicans and the Democrats, that $105,000 will be very difficult for us to work within, and we'll have to come before your board and or to the mayor for a transfer of funds. But if anybody has any specific questions about elections, Karen and Deborah and I will be happy to answer them.
Thank you. That figure you mentioned for the 4 years ago, was that for the entire election or just a primary expense?
No. That was for the primary and the election that happened within that fiscal year.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, let's hope for no primaries.
That's a good hope.
Register of voters, page 15.
Okay, so we had a couple of things. I'm sure you've all heard about the redistricting process that happens once the census is complete. The good news about redistricting that we have so far is that were very minor changes in the legislative districts. The senatorial districts have stayed unchanged within Milford. And we just got news last week that our congressional district is also not changed. So any expenses in terms of changing that are not very big at this point because Deborah and I have already completed all the work that needed to be done for that. And we've been able to keep everybody in the same polling place. So we don't have to notify anybody of any changes either. The only thing that's outstanding that may come into effect with the budget that we're talking about right now, and that's why you'll see some of a couple of line items were increased, is that we don't know what's going to happen with local redistricting. So if locally the alderman makes some dramatic changes to aldermanic districts or local districts, then we do have to notify voters when their polling place changes. So that would increase perhaps, it will definitely increase our postage account, which is why in working with the mayor, we've settled on a figure that we think we can stay within. And then we've increased the overtime a little bit because some of the work involved in terms of the data entry, as well as creating the mailing, we were thinking we'd keep it all in-house and do it ourselves, but we're just trying to be very mindful of some of the things like redistricting changes that might come up. Let me just make sure I'm not missing anything. Deborah, of course, you can stop me. The other thing that I want to mention, it's costing a little bit more money, is our canvas, our annual canvas that we do. It's not just based on national change of address anymore. We're part of a multi-state program, ERIC, it's an electronic, I don't know what ERIC stands for exactly, I'm sorry. But it's basically the states communicating with one another and trying to keep voter lists clean and accurate and up to date. And so we send canvas letters based on the ERIC information from other states, and we're required to do so and act upon those. And there's a facet of things like duplicate voters and things like that that we have to address as well. And so there is some more expense than in years past as more states join this ERIC group to try to keep the voter registration list as clean as possible. So in the scheme of things, over the last 14 years that I've been involved, our budget increase is minimal. But we walk a tight line. So at this point, if anybody has any specific questions, again, we'd all be very happy to answer them. And Deborah, if you have anything you want to add, please do.
I just wanted to add to the voter canvas this year. Also, we included all of the absentee letters that came back. And for people that were not at home or not there, we added an extra at the end of the canvas. After she does her national change of address, we've got those envelopes, and that was a big thing with absentee envelopes coming back. And also when we get a note at the polling places, we also canvass those people. They say, oh, this person died, that person moved away, and then we will canvass that to make sure that, again, for our accurate rolls.
Thank you. Any members of the board have any questions or comments for the registrars? All right. Thank you for coming out.
Hey, thank you for moving us up. Appreciate it very much.
Anytime.
Okay.
Okay, we'll move on to page 22, City Clerk.
Good evening. So my budget is basically flat, but for the one increase of around $20,000 under the indexing and recording. And that's because we are switching our records management vendor. The current vendor the city's been using since 2006. I'm switching to a new company. It was approved by the Board of Aldermen, the contract at the last February meeting. And the new vendor is IQS. It offers a lot more efficiencies. It's going to increase accuracy. One of the most important things for me in terms of features, I'll be able to cut out a process. Right now, our current vendor doesn't communicate with Munis, and this system will be able to. So I'm really excited about that. This vendor is also used by all the surrounding towns: Stratford, West Haven, Orange, New Haven. So the title searchers are going to be able to get some consistency now when they come to Milford. So I'm really, really excited to have this new program.
Is that going to change the online searching? Is there going to be a new online search engine?
Yes. So everything is going to switch to this new vendor. And right now, when you search online, if you don't buy a subscription, a daily subscription for $7.50, or you pay the monthly fee, I think it's $30 or $35, you're only able to see the indexed information. Now, once we switch, you'll be able to see the entire document. You won't be able to print it out. You'll have a watermark on it, but your search for the entire document is going to be free. And then if they choose to make a copy, then we'll still be getting the same copy fee that we get with our current vendor.
Great. Well, that's very important, I think, for professionals as well as the public. So
it's Karen. Is this a one-time setup fee, or is this the new fee going forward?
It's the new fee going forward. and they price it a little differently. Our current vendor has like an a la carte fee structure. So if I were to try to match what this current vendor or the new vendor would give us, it wouldn't be this $20,000 difference. It would probably be a little bit closer to maybe a $15,000 or $10,000 difference.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Well, along those lines, this is not necessarily it's not in the expense section, but in the revenue section for conveyance taxes. I see we're keeping that number at 1.4 million. Is that, are we comfortable with that? I mean, it looks like we're ahead of schedule for this year's revenue.
Yeah, I feel good about that. You know, it's been extremely robust, the market, since COVID, and it's been very, very consistent. Inventory may be a little down. It might be starting to slow up just a little with the low inventory and possibility of rising rates. So I feel pretty confident with that figure.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay. Anybody further? Okay, well, thank you for coming out.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a great night.
You too. Thank you. Okay, okay, Human Resources Department, page 41.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Welcome.
So I'm Tanya Barnes. I'm the HR director with the city. Overall, my budget is flat, with the exception in 2 lines. I've requested an additional $500 in each line for a total of $1,000. The first line is under medical and professional services. That's the line that we use to pay for pre-employment physicals, DOT, drug testing, and so forth. The vendor that we utilize for pre-employment physicals and DOT testing notified us last year that they were no longer able to provide that service for us. So we are using a new vendor, but the pricing is a little bit higher. So that $500 in that line was to just cover the expenses in full. And then the other line is under testing and evaluations, and is our testing software that we utilize for pre-employment testing for clerical and administrative positions. And so there were some enhancements, and so they increased the cost of it. But it also brings a training module that we will be rolling out to our employees that they could train and get training in things like Excel and Access and enhance their skill set. So those were the 2 lines in which we requested a very minimal increase.
Thank you. Any questions on human resources? Okay, thank you, Tanya.
I'm just,
Thank you.
sorry, Brian, I'm just curious. So that the test and evaluations for the drug test, is that for every city employee? Like how many people are you testing in an average year? I'm just curious.
Well, the testing and evaluation line is for civil service tests. The other medical and professional fees, that's where we pay for DOT testing and pre-employment physicals. And if they have a CDL license, they'll require a drug test as well.
Gotcha.
Just as background, not all employees are subject to random drug tests. Anyone that has a CDL license, however, is, as well as some other positions like firefighters, they're subject to random drug tests. Positions where safety is a factor, those types of positions, you can have random drug tests. Other positions you cannot.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay,
I think the other item that I'm covering is under the pension board on page 30.
Pension board. Thank you. I think a lot of these smaller commissions we've moved off, but if there's anything you'd like to address,
Okay.
given that we're meeting by Zoom, we eliminated a lot of the smaller commissions and boards from.
Okay, there was just a change in the secretarial fees.
Yes.
In speaking with the chair of the board, he recommended that we increase the secretarial fees. Our meetings are typically on average between an hour and a half in length. And then obviously followed by preparation of the minutes and so forth. So we were looking to increase that by $50, the monthly secretarial services. $50 per month, which would be an extra $600.
This is probably a question for the mayor. Are all our secretarial fees for all of the commissions at the same rate? I assume they are.
So they're all a little different. Some note minutes are taken, by in-house staff.
Right.
For example, the Board of Aldermen is set by the rules of the Board of Aldermen, or actually there is a personnel committee of the Board of Aldermen that has set it years and years and years ago, and I don't think it's changed recently, but there's a different rate for the Board of Aldermen than other boards and commissions. But each board and commission is a little bit different. Some boards, like planning and zoning, for example, has a staff person from the zoning office, take the minutes of that, and they get paid at their staff rate. So it's a little bit different for each board and commission.
Okay. Well, I can understand when we have professional staff or, with P and Z, for instance, but I don't know, it's probably a discussion for another day, but I would think some uniformity would, fairness to the people doing the work, I would think they should all, be paid similarly. But
I agree.
okay, anything further from the board? All right, thank you, Tanya.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Have a good night. Public Library, page 35.
Hey, good evening, everybody. I'm Chris Angeli. I'm the director of the Public Library. The budget in front of you is a very, very minor increase, mostly attributable to salaries. There are only 2 line items where I've really asked for an increase, and I've tried to offset those, as I usually do, with cuts to other line items. I have asked for an increase in our seasonal temp account. We do have 10 seasonal temp desk staff that help cover all of our public service desks, and they have not had a raise increase in well over 10 years. At this point, that's really atrocious to start with, but at this point, with the rise in the minimum wage, we're really starting to bump up against what we're paying some of our staff here. So I'm asking for an increase in the seasonal temp account and also in our electronic media account. Much of our content that we loan to patrons is going digital, and there are costs associated with that. One thing I did want to bring to your attention, just as note, you might see a discrepancy between what I had asked for and then what the mayor had recommended under our microfilm line account. We are hoping to have a project to digitize all of our microfilm for the local Milford newspapers. That was a project that I was trying to find funds for within my regular budget when it was recommended that I move that instead to the ARPA committee. So you will see a line item change from what I requested for in the microfilm budget to what the mayor had recommended. And we are all on board with getting that done that way. So I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody might have.
I'm just curious about how many books do you purchase every year? I was just looking at that line item right there.
How many total we purchase? That's
Yeah.
actually a great question. It really depends on
Yeah.
what standing orders we have and what bestsellers we have.
Mhm.
I will say that that line item for $105,000 has also not increased in well over 10 years, whereas the cost of books have.
Mhm.
We have a total collection of about 150,000 books.
Wow.
We did made a real push the past 2 years with the renovation of our children's department to add a lot of content to that department. With the renovation and the move, we were able to really increase and make a push for newer content there. So that was a nice feature.
Yeah, the children's library is beautiful.
Thank you. Yes, I agree.
Yep.
Are there?
If there's nothing
other
further,
questions?
thank you, Chris.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, have a good night.
You too. Thank you.
Probate Court, page 26.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Ben Gettinger. I'm the probate judge, and it's nice to be back, except in a different role.
Welcome back.
Thank you. So our budget is basically flat. There's about $100 of an increase, and that's just to get some new material to reflect the change in the probate judge. And it's for the same line items that we traditionally have.
I ask this question every year, but I always forget. Now, Orange contributes, is it on a pro rata basis or per capita basis in some fashion? How does that work?
It is, and it's 25%.
25%, okay. Okay, anything further? If none, Ben, thank you. Congratulations on your election and good luck.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Take care. Okay, community development, page 20.
Good evening, everyone. Julie Nash, Director of Economic Development. My budget is basically flat, except for my request to increase my part-time assistant to full-time and level up to an economic development specialist. I think I've been here for 8 years now, and I've had a part-time person, which I've filled holes with here and there through seasonal temps or interns. I've made do, but the opportunity arose when my part-time person took leave, and I thought it would be the perfect opportunity to make this part-time position into a full-time position. It's a very, I think the benefits outweigh the fiscal impact to the city. The part-time position receives benefits at full-time benefits as a part-time. So that would remain the same. The increase would be in the salary. But again, I really do think it's a minimal fiscal impact for the benefit from the city. We do have an extreme amount of work coming up. As you know, the economy is absolutely wild right now. So data analysis and data tracking is alone is a huge part, and a lot of it is a little overwhelming. So we have a real estate audit coming up. We have a post-COVID strategic development plan that we'll be working on. We're working on a housing plan, and having that full-time person with the capacity to really assist me as we move forward, I think is not only important for myself to operate an efficient department, but it is in the best interest of the city of Milford.
Hey, Julie, it's Scott.
Hi, Scott.
Has that part-time person been like a consistent part-time person, or is it like every few months you have to find a new replacement?
So in the 8 years I've been here, I've had 2 part-time people. The first one left to go full-time. The second and works now downstairs in the tax department. And my second one was also part-time, and she left for another private opportunity. But those are the two people I've had. And then to fill out the extra hours, the mayor's generously paid for a seasonal when things just got, grants or things that we were working on were just too much for one person. And it really is a lot. I serve on a number of statewide boards that require time and attention. And those are important for the city of Milford to be at, to be part of the conversation. And having somebody local, just in the past 3 weeks, I've had somebody kind of had a pinch hit for me at a number of different events that I was just booked at exactly the same time. And my previous part-time admins are incredible. They were both incredible. I really love working with both of them. They're great with the data. But the upgrade was really to have somebody attend to some of the events that I can't go to and be a face at some of the local things or some of the state things when it's impossible to be at all of them. And we just have a long day. Every night, I say probably 2 or 3 times a week, there's a night event, and we have to be there. So whether it's in Hartford or wherever it's Milford, and it's just, you end up missing so much, and it's important, like I said, for the city. And I'm thoughtful in this request and really have, thought about how I can do this myself or do this with a part-time assistant. And it just wouldn't be as efficient if I didn't have somebody with the capacity to do these kind of more high level things, but also do the little things that we need done, the requisitions and the munis and payroll and all of those things that we do too. It's a lot of work for one person and a part-time admin. Again, we've made do with the seasonals, but the lack of consistency when we have the seasonals is difficult to train somebody over and over again about any new initiatives we have, and we always have new initiatives coming up. It would just be more consistent and efficient for the department.
Are you tapping seasonals pretty much every year, would you say, or multiple times a year?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Anything further? Okay, thank you.
Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you, Julie. Have a good evening.
You too.
Okay, we'll move on to Council on Aging, page 87.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So our budget is flat. I'm not asking for any additions, subtractions. So the request as it reads is 1.349799 with 1.345 of that going to the grant, 20,000 for the vehicle gas, $1 that is set for the elderly nutrition, which is actually a placeholder, and 4,000 for office supplies.
Okay.
So in,
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, you can continue if you'd like.
Well, just to kind of share with everyone a little bit on the senior center, as most folks know here, we're open for residents 55 and above. They utilize our services a lot for Meals on Wheels, transportation, social services, senior benefits, nutrition, food-based programs, vaccination clinics. Most notably, we both do the flu, and we have done booster clinics here, and a specialized respite program, the Aaron's program, which is for individuals who have mild cognitive impairment, Alzheimer's, dementia. And most notably, our center offers fitness and wellness programs such as yoga, travel, music, language, dance, special events, pickleball, billiards, and much more that the folks are really excited about. Just kind of give you some numbers about our programs just briefly. Our Meals on Wheels program has increased from 65 clients to approximately 90 clients, which equates to about 2,300 meals annually. Because of this increase, we actually added an additional driver and was able to repair one of our defunct vehicles so that we can assist our community members a little bit quicker. Along with that, we increased our radius for medical transportation for our Milford residents to include a 7-mile radius. And along with that, we've done a lot of programming that just to entice and attract people here. We had a time within the last 2 years that we've been kind of on the wave of what's happening at the center with every COVID time that we've dealt with, especially hitting the older population. It's really done a number for the membership here, where we were very proud to say we had about 2,000 members. We're at this point, and we're not concluded for the year. We're about 1,400 of a membership right now. So it's a little much lower than, not much lower, but to be expected. But we're doing a lot in terms of getting folks to come back to the center and really look forward to making this their senior center once again. Any questions?
Just a quick question. Are you guys fully open right now? Are people coming in and using the facility?
Yes, we're fully open. We did in January had to reduce the large size classes just because we were in a peak there. But February we went back to having our large classes. Come March, we look at increasing those back up to about 50 people per class to their comfort level. Uniquely, what we're able to do between 20 and 21 was upgrade our Wi-Fi system, which made us really do a lot more with our online programming. So people have the option now to either take a class from home, comfort of their home and their jammies, or to come in person. So that's really been helping a lot of folks that were really concerned about coming in. But we do have a lot of folks who have been kind of banging down our doors and saying, we want to come in. We're like, come on in, enjoy. We want you to come into our space. The city has done a beautiful job in the interior space, and I have worked with Public Works to ensure all the areas are neat and tidy, clean, and that's really being noticed by the members. One of the biggest comments is, "Wow, this place looks great." So I'm glad they're feeling comfortable. So the more that we offer, the more they'll come in and join us.
Is your membership fee the same as in the past?
Yes, member fee is $15 annually for Milford residents, and then we do have a non-resident fee of $30, and we do limit the amount, and we currently have approximately 130 people on that wait list for non-resident.
Okay. Thank you.
Lorna, how were expenses maybe a year and a half ago, when COVID was a bit more out of control? Were expenses lower? I mean, were you able to open? I forget.
Yes, we were open, although we had some of our, once again, a lot of the larger classes we have shrunk down just for spacing reasons and comfort for our membership. In terms of costs, I want to say COVID wasn't terrible to us because we actually had a lot of support. The stimulus monies, a lot of folks were donating to us for various programs, nutrition. So that was very helpful. So we were able to do a lot with that.
That's great. Yeah, that's good to hear. How much of this is your total budget? The 1,36977. Is this your entire, or is it?
So that's about 80 to 83%. And then the remainder of that is made up by membership, CDBG, United Way, any of the class fees, not class fees, pardon me, class donations. Those are mainly our streams there. I've had a couple grants that I've written that have produced a couple dollars here and there. Most recently, the Foundation of Greater New Haven, through a donor advised fund, granted us $15,000. And that itself went towards our errands program to assist families who may be struggling with the cost of a fee.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything further from the members? Okay, thank you, Lenore. Have a good evening.
You as well. Bye, everyone.
You too. Milford Fine Arts Council, page 87.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Paige Melio, the Executive Director of the Milford Arts Council. Status of the MAC is the fact that we are celebrating 50 years today, or this year in 2022. We had full-heartedly expected and hoped that we would be back to more or less normal in the coming year. And with that hope, we had pushed corporate sponsorships in light of the gala year, et cetera, and our donors and members. We have since had to reschedule and cancel some events through some of the spikes. We plan to open with only 70% capacity, people fully masked, and vaccines expected and requested. With that, we've probably seen between 80 to 100% of that 70% capacity arrive at our doors. They have enjoyed and appreciated all of our efforts. But in the long run, we look at the fact that we were pushing corporate sponsorships, and we're probably about half of what we projected at being. We're probably not even at our goal for the prior year. A lot of that has to do with the fact that we're just not out and about and seeing people as much as we normally are, and the fact that a few of our sponsors have dropped due to COVID. Our membership has remained more or less static. It goes up and down rather much like the economy. Not sure why. We've had a lot of members not renew. Over the course of the 2 years, we have seen a huge influx of new members, and many of those new members are coming in at a higher rate. So between membership and individual donations, that has almost balanced out the loss of corporate sponsorships. But those types of monies are not sustainable or really can't be counted on a year-to-year basis. So we're kind of treading carefully, remaining positive, and moving forward with a lot of our goals for continued growth. We're continuing to look to Eisenhower Park, as we did last summer. Our gala date has been scheduled at September 10th. So put that on your calendar now. We are looking for our goal after the gala year to develop now for some new family programming, as well as some new partnerships with some new businesses that have been popping up. So we continue to kind of forge forward. We are looking to expand staff. We realize now that going to year-round programming, expanding into new programming, and with the loss of volunteers, or rather, should I say dependable volunteers, that staff is now working most every single event. To give you an example, we had our 2 full-time staff, myself and my business manager, at all 6 shows of the play last weekend and the weekend before. Typically, we have volunteers as point people who take charge. We go on occasion, but we had to be present at each and every one. So that's definitely putting some stresses on us. So I think that's where we are. We're extremely appreciative of the support from the city of Milford. We give a huge shout out to Public Works for all of their support with everything that happened in Eisenhower Park, as well as other projects and outdoor events, and to Transit Department for keeping our area around the MAC clean, tidy, and salted. So if anybody has any questions.
Hey, Paige.
Scott.
Just one question. What percentage of your budget is this grant? Do you have an idea?
It used to be about a third. When I started, our budget was around 215. We are now pushing a budget of about 270 to 290.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have we increased the 70,000? I thought we had an increase of about 2 or 3 years ago, didn't we, from 60 to 70?
It went from 65 to 70.
And what was that in?
That was
Should have
about,
been
I'm going to
2019?
say a couple years before COVID, I think.
Okay. Anything further? All right, well, hopefully we'll have a great year, busy year, not too busy.
Thank you very
Okay.
much, everybody.
Thank you, Paige. Okay. Transit District.
Good evening. My name's Henry Jadek. I'm the Executive Director of Milford Transit. We have operated every day through the pandemic, all of our services, which I'm very proud of. Our buses have all been sanitized every day. The train station's been sanitized every day. We've struggled to get our PPE, but got it all. So we're trying to get all people back on the buses and back on the vans now. That's our main focus. The buses are doing much better than the vans are, I think for several reasons. One of them is a lot of people working at home are taking care of some of the transportation for their families that weren't able to do it before, and a few other factors. Budgetarily, we've asked for the same amount that we received from the city last year. We did suffer quite a bit financially, not collecting fares throughout the pandemic, but we were fortunate enough to get CARES grants, and in the process of getting an American Recovery Plan grant now that have filled all the holes and kept us within budget and doing better than I thought we would in that respect. Be happy to answer any questions about our services, about budget, about anything else. We're also very appreciative of the city's contribution, because it really makes a big difference when we go for grants and we talk to the state of Connecticut and other people who give us funds. So be happy to answer questions for you.
Hey, Henry. Just a quick question. When you said earlier you didn't stop during COVID, I assume, were there reduced routes, or were you still running the same services?
The only thing that was reduced was the van services because of the amount of calls in was reduced. The fixed routes ran all the same hours. Coastal Link ran all the same hours. And we did reduce the van services, and they're coming back. We're adding vans now from some of the ones we had to subtract because of the lack of requests. But I think that's going to pick up quite a bit now that things have loosened up, and we're doing a marketing campaign now. You should, if you live in Milford, you should be getting a hopefully good-looking postcard after March 1st. You know, explaining some of the services and offering our seniors and disabled a free ride to reacquaint them with the service.
Hi, Henry. I'm just curious. The vans are by appointment or request only. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's application required, but during the application process, we do provide service until the applications are approved.
Okay.
In regards to the train station, with so few people still going on Metro North, is there any ability or talk about changing some of the parking setup? Because that one lot between the train station and Dorina seems to be vacant most days. I think you control that lot. Is there any, because I see just from own experience that there might be more of a need for short-term parking. People may be going in for a Yankee game or something where they just want to be able to pay to park, for the day or short-term as opposed to commuters.
Yeah, all the parking went from COVID day one from about 2% to now probably 30%, 40% capacity. Strangely enough, all the spaces in that lot that you mentioned are permit spaces just for city residents. And we just in the process of doing a renewal now. And up to this point, 90% or better of those spaces are paid for, even though they're not being used. And it's the same thing in the other lots that are permit lots. Even though they're certainly not full when they were full before the pandemic, people are still, I guess, thinking that they're going to need them and going to need the spaces, so they've re-upped their permits for the most part.
They don't want to use it or lose it, or pay for it or lose it.
One kind of good thing that came out of all of this, we had a wait list at one time that was 3.5 years before you get a permit. Over 800 people on the list. Now our wait list is a handful. We're able to offer a permit just about for anyone now, just about for anyone who needs a permit. So in that respect, it's a fresh list. People that need it now should be able to get a space in a relatively short period of time.
What do they charge for a month? What is it, annually, monthly? What do you?
6 months is $200. 1 year is $300, and the lot that you talked about with the Milford only residence is $350. It's pretty inexpensive.
Maybe I'll pay for one just to have one when I come downtown.
Well,
I'll split it with you, Brian.
Yes.
Well, there are about 15 spaces on the down south side that are reserved for 90-minute parking for some of the merchants down there.
Well, thank you, Henry. Keep up the good work.
Right.
And appreciate it. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Bethel Center, page 92.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm Jen Paradis. I'm the Executive Director of the Bethel Center. It's good to see you again this year. I'm joined by, I think, still our board president, Max Case. Hi, Max. As well as our secretary, Justin Kobe, who's en route, probably on his way to one of Henry's paid parking spaces so he can get home. So we might not be seeing him, but he is with us here tonight. Just real quickly wanted to give you a quick update on where the center has been this year and where it's planning to go. Of course, in 2020, 2021, we were able to remain open at full capacity during the pandemic. You've probably read in news headlines and in various areas that shelters had to operate at reduced capacity. We were able to safely remain at 100% capacity. And thanks to lots of the interventions for COVID-19 have been able to mitigate the impact on our services through Delta and Omicron. We have, unfortunately experienced a lot of the side effects of the pandemic, just unrelated to the infectious disease of it. But the impact of inflation has led more folks to our soup kitchen services and our diversion programs. Increases to mental health are sending more folks to use our partners. We partner with Cornell Scott Hill Health Center for acute healthcare services, and of course Bridges Healthcare for their medication-assisted treatment services, and just a real crunch when it comes to housing accessibility. Our minimum and low-wage earners are finding it just almost near impossible to shop in this market without a housing subsidy, which is a great part of the work that we do. And our high wage earners are who earn too much to qualify for a lot of the subsidies that we offer, finding that difficult as well. And what that means is that it just results in longer length of stays in our shelter programs as we continue to try to place folks back into their communities. We offer 4 real key programs that are important for here tonight. One of them is our outreach and engagement program. That's been pivotal in responding to some of these long-term encampments that we've had in the community. There's 2 kind of more well-known encampments in the area that we've been working in for a few years, and I'm happy to say that those encampments have shrunk substantially. With 2 of the primary areas that we target with only 2 occupants each. Our outreach program has also matched every unsheltered person in our case management program with a housing voucher at this time, which is a really, really cool, I'll say, an important thing, because these are folks who are unsheltered, who are being connected directly to housing services. We've been able to kind of manage the flow in and out of shelter, serving about the same amount of individuals and families that we've served over 2020. And our newest or youngest program, our diversion services, which really targets homeless prevention and keeping folks out of our system. We've served 169 individuals and 11 families in that program in its first 18 months. Again, these are folks that are calling into 211 in the Milford area looking for assistance. We've still seen increases in our food numbers, serving just under what we did in 2020 and 2021, just over just under 34,000 meals. I think to date, the biggest kind of reflection of where homeless response is, given all the conditions that we are impacted by, is our No Freeze program. We've seen, and this group has seen that program go from 6 beds in our soup kitchen dining room to 25 beds in partnership with St. Peter's Church. Today, we are serving 47 folks in partnership with Motel 6. And these are folks that have identified as previous zip codes in the Milford and Orange community. And so that's concerning. A lot of that has to do with the slowing flow in and out of shelter, and just those conditions that are making it very difficult for people to find housing and maintain housing. Just real quickly, I'll share that 60% of our emergency shelter folks are year-round shelter. Census identified Milford as their home address. 82% of the clients in our No Freeze program this season have identified Milford as their home address. And of course, 100% of the folks that we serve in our outreach program have identified Milford as their home address. So we're here tonight, of course, asking for the flat funding as we received last year's budget. I believe the year before that is when we received a 5% of $5,000 increase. And that was just so appreciated as we saw, particularly our unsheltered numbers start to increase. What I tried to provide for you as information tonight is just showing that we do try to be good stewards of that dollar, make sure we're showing outcomes in the community despite all of these other kind of crazy factors due to the pandemic and all the economic hardship as a result of that in households in the area. So as I mentioned, I am joined here by Max, who's our board president, and just want to share, we're very thankful for his efforts and the efforts of the board. They provide so much by way of volunteering, fundraising to make this operation a success, and thinking about who we are into the future, excited about that work ahead as well. So I'll pause there for any questions.
Thank you, Jennifer. Hello, Max. How are you?
Brian, nice to see you.
You too. Any members of the board have any questions for the Bethel shelter?
Yeah, just a couple. Jennifer, you mentioned earlier that there were 2 I forget how you phrased it, camps where people were essentially living. Did I hear you correct? Like they're down to just 2 people living in them now, or? Did I misunderstand that?
Yeah, so we have several targeted areas that we work within that there's been kind of historic activity in. And so there are more than two, but a lot of what our work does in outreach and engagement is to strategize around reaching out to these communities, building relationships in these communities, targeting the largest ones first, of course. And so our programs, our outreach program has been open and on the ground for over 2 years now. And so we've seen an encampment that went from 5 to 6 individuals. And this is minus kind of the transient plus or minus that we get, because every once in a while there's a new face that pops up. But we've been able to successfully house a number of folks out of both of those programs. And so had some nice conversations with open spaces, because I think at some point soon, we should be looking at how do we disassemble some of the structures of that property and restore some of that area back to its natural conditions. I think that's really possible for one of these encampments within the next 12 months. And hopefully the second one, which is a little bit of, there's some additional challenges there, but is soon after that. But that's exactly, particularly the outreach program, the work that we do is really hyper targeting some of these areas.
Gotcha. And what's your total budget this year? What do you expect that to be?
So at this time, our total budget is just about $1 million. We've made some targeted investments. We brought on an HR manager at that point. Up until last year, that was a hat that I was wearing. And of course, the needs of employees of this agency are greater than what I can provide them. So that was critical. And we also are bringing on a development director that can really manage a lot of the contracts that we do hold for all of these various programs and services. And so that's increased the budget a little bit, around that, but we've targeted fundraising investments, making sure that, ensuring that if we're adding any admin costs to the budget, that those are supplemented by projects that help support that.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you for all you do too. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Anything further? Okay. Thank you for your time and for joining us this evening.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bridges, page 89.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jen Fiorello. I'm the CEO of Bridges Healthcare. Thank you for having me this evening. Just to sort of highlight some of the things that we've been doing at Bridges in the last couple of years. With the pandemic, we've had to ramp up and retract several times because of the few surges we've had this year and last year. Right now, we're back to providing services 4 days a week at our main site on Bridgeport Avenue, as well as our other sites. We have one remote day where we allow our staff to do telehealth from home. We're also allowing telehealth from our main site if there are clients who are still hesitant about coming into our main site. But we have not reduced the volume of services that we've been providing to our clients. Presently, we have roughly 1,300 Milford residents being serviced through our agency, which is about 70% of the people that we serve. In total, we serve about 2,000 unduplicated in our outpatient services. That includes our child and adult outpatient services, our medication management, our intensive in-home services for adolescents and children, case management, and other wraparound services that we provide to our clients. This last year, we've been challenged by some workforce shortages. Within the last 6 months, we've seen some turnover with our clinicians. That's created a challenge for us to try and keep up with the demand. I'm sure you're well aware that the increase in demand for behavioral health is exponential, and there's right now a crisis on the child and behavioral health side, and there are a lot of waiting lists to get into services from hospitalizations. So as an agency, we're doing everything we can to try and accommodate not only through our outpatient services, but we do have various school-based clinics that we provide clinical services right out of the schools. So this year we are requesting level funding of $380,000, which is very generous from the city of Milford. We rely heavily on our reimbursement from insurance and our grants to cover the cost of services, but oftentimes it does not cover. And our local funding is what really helps us to bridge that gap in the expenses for all of the clinical services and our administrative overhead that's involved with operating a very highly regulated setting and services.
Thank you, Jennifer.
You're welcome.
Any questions, comments?
Hi, Jen.
Hey.
You said you were short-staffed. When you are full-staffed, about how many staff members are there in the?
We're up to about 200 with our part-time staff now.
Okay.
We've quite a bit through some expansion initiatives that we've gotten federal funding for. And so we have, I would say, about 180 full-time equivalents, or 175. And the rest are part-time and contractors.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, if there's nothing further, we'll move on to Police Department.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. Thanks.
I think that's page 43, I believe. Yes. Welcome, Chief Mello. How are you?
I'm well. How's everyone doing tonight?
Good, thank you.
Nice to see you folks. I'll be brief in my opening comments. You probably noticed when you look at the budget, the complexion of the police department has changed somewhat in terms of I'm sorry, just saw someone run across my front yard with a flashlight, which is not a good sign. We've seen some.
You can certainly take a break if you need to.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Not sure who it could be, but I'll let you know if I have to get off and check that out. But what we're seeing is an unprecedented number of openings. We just graduated a class of 9 officers. And before that, in January, in December, before that class finished their training in February, just a few weeks ago, we have to put another class in. We'll have 12 openings as of March 1st. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to take a break. I just to check that out, if you don't mind. Can I ask for just
yes,
a few?
Please take your time, and we'll be ready for it when you come back.
I'll be right back. Thank you.
Yeah, take your time. Okay, at this point, we'll hope the chief is okay. I would not be the one to be the person going across his front yard, but we'll move on to animal control in the interim and go back to the chief when he's available. Do we have anyone from animal control, page 54?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I believe Scott Ellingson is online. Scott, I had muted your telephone. If you could hit, I believe it's the number 6 on your phone to unmute.
I think it's *6.
*6, yes. Oh, Scott, I think we have Chief Mello back. So
Okay.
Also,
then we'll go back to Chief Mello, and we'll get back to Scott when he's there.
Thank you for that break. It's just a delivery person at the wrong house. I'm set so far back, so you don't see too many people back here.
That's fine. No, you're certainly wise to check it out. Welcome back.
Thank you. So as I was saying, and we're looking at by the end of February, beginning of March, 12 openings. And by summer, we'll likely have another 5 openings. So what we're seeing is people leaving at an accelerated rate, taking retirement. Some are just getting out of law enforcement altogether. And normally what you would see when we had the large number of openings like that, you would see a lot of overtime being spent. And you didn't see that last year because what we're seeing is officers don't want to work and they're not taking the overtime and availing themselves of the overtime. And so that's presented a lot of staffing issues for us, especially last year when we were staffing our beaches, which we haven't done that since I was a patrol officer, where we had to put police officers at beaches. We saw increased activity there. We saw increased activity in Milford Center. And so I don't know what next year is going to look like in terms of the use of overtime. We did return more overtime than we ever have, we spent far less overtime than we ever did. And while that may be a good thing, it's a bad thing in the sense that we just don't have officers that want to work those openings, and we need to staff these patrols. I'm sure you're reading the newspaper. I'm sure you're seeing what we're experiencing in terms of the level of incidents, not just in Milford, but around the state. So it's very important that we maintain full staffing levels. We're pulling 2 people out of task forces, and we have 4 less officers in our detective division as a result, trying to keep the patrol staff. But the other thing that it's created is the issue of having to order police officers to stay for another shift on a regular basis, especially throughout the summer. It's daily. And some officers, it's day after day. And that's having an impact both on their engagement and on their mental health as well. So in some of those we can, I think, address through the budget, and some we can't. And so you'll notice in this budget, I had requested 4 additional officers. And those 4 additional officers were to make up for those vacancies that are regularly occurring. So we have staff. So we don't have to order people in that expect to go home at 8 o'clock in the morning or 12 o'clock at night and are ordered and told, no, you can't go, you have to stay. And then you will also stay tomorrow. And I think in fairness to them and to their families and to their health, both physical and mental health, I think it's really imperative that we look in that direction. And so that's why you'll see that there. In the event that we see a turnaround in terms of our ability to retain and our ability to recruit, we can certainly retract back from those 4 additional officers if you see fit to keep those officers in there. I do want to point something out. When I became a police officer in 1981, we had 109 officers. Right after that, we went to 111. We really only have 109 officers now. Milford has changed completely because we added officers, but we put them in SROs. We added a 5th SRO, and we took another officer off the street and we hired a dispatcher, but we can't hang on to dispatchers. That's just the reality of either the job market or our salary, because we are on the low end of the salary, and we're trying to address some of those things. But that's 1 less officer. It's what I anticipated it would be, but it's 1 less officer on the road. We also have an officer that has served in the reserves, the Naval Reserve, and we just looked at the numbers. She spends 2/3 of her time with the reserves, and then the other third, a lot of it has to do with training mandates, and of course she wants to take her vacation. So we're dealing with far less officers than we ever had, and so that's the reason for those 4 officers. You'll also see in there requests for parking attendants, and that is to address the parking enforcement down at the beaches. And it's been a good program with the kiosks, and I know the city's generated a lot of revenue as a result of that. it's getting more and more expensive to train police officers. There's more training mandates than there ever have been. There will be more in the upcoming years. We're working on a curriculum update for in-service training as well as recruit training. And so I think our officers are probably, while they can do that, to do that on a regular basis and to keep the turnover of spaces and to keep that at the same time, also that revenue flow that we charge people to park to use our beaches, and referring to out-of-town people. We'd like to be able to hire seasonal parking attendants to go ahead and do that. We're still outfitting new cars as they come in, and that requires a complete turnover of about $15,000 of the $20,000 worth of equipment that goes into these cars. You'll see a slight increase in training due to the training mandates that we mentioned, and most of those are either regulatory or statutory. And I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Chief Mello. I'll start with a couple questions where you just finished up. The increase in the seasonal temporary line, is that related to the parking attendants that you just mentioned, or is that something different?
Yes, Mayor, I believe that's where it is, correct? Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So you see that when the chief and I had our budget meeting, we had increased it from the initial request to 115,000.
Yes, okay. And then did you say, as far as the patrol officers, there were 12 vacancies, or 12 vacancies throughout the department in all positions?
There will be 12 police officer vacancies on or about March 1st.
Okay, through retirements or other?
Through retirements, through officers leaving.
Is that just officers or dispatchers, or?
No, that's just officers. Dispatchers is something completely different, and that has always been a problem, and that's a problem throughout law enforcement, trying to keep dispatchers employed. So it's not unique to Milford. And we are addressing it to try to make the job more attractive in whatever ways that we can, so we can try to retain people. It's important to note that when a dispatcher retires or a dispatcher leaves, which they don't really retire, they leave, we have to fill that vacancy with a police officer. And that's rare that you actually put police officers in a dispatch center. It's completely two different jobs. It's something that was done many, many years ago. But because we don't have we don't have any overflow of dispatchers, so it's important to note that when someone does leave, that's one less police officer. So you may have 10 vacancies of police officers, but if you have 3 vacancies or 4 vacancies of dispatchers, then you also have 3 or 4 less police officers to put in the field.
Does the fire department have to share that with you guys?
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
No, those dispatchers all come under PD. They're all public safety dispatchers. And so there's some that work on the fire side, some that work on the police side. And most of them can do both. It actually takes about 4 to 6 months to train them to do both, which is a long training. I mean, it's less than what it is for a police officer, but still it's a big training curve.
Okay.
So just to piggyback on Brian's question, and I just want to make sure I took the right note down here. So after the officers you have going through the academy, after they come on board, that'll be after March 1st, you'll still have 12 openings?
On or about March 1st. We're still waiting on, there are 2 officers that are in the process of leaving. One that they're not retirement eligible, and we're still waiting to hear on when they will exactly leave. So yes, so we just finished 2 weeks ago, our officers first 2 weeks ago, and then a week ago, the 9 officers that we had hired and trained. Don't forget, it takes 10 to 11 months to train a police officer from the date they start. Once they started, that still left us with additional vacancies. And even with those new officers, on or about March 1st, we'll have 12 vacancies, 11 or 12, depending on whether this one particular officer does get a job at another department or not.
So the 9 that are in the academy, I assume there's some rate that, some will just fail out for whatever reason, you won't see them on the job for best case 10, 12 months. Is that?
No, I'm sorry. So those 9 have graduated and finished training, some a week ago, some 2 weeks ago. So they're actually taking calls.
Oh.
But we will start another academy in April because we will have 11 to 12 openings. We could have 13, but best guess is 11 to 12 on or about March 1st. And
Gotcha.
those officers, once April starts, it'll be 11 months before they take their first call on their own, right? And just to continue with that, we know we already have approximately 5 openings to occur this summer because we've had retirements that have been announced.
I understand it's a moving target between new hires and retirements, et cetera. But is there ever a point where you're, at full capacity or full staffing to the extent there's such a thing?
We normally see that right after the academy graduates. This is for us, and I use the word, hate to keep overusing the word unprecedented, but I mean, there's a couple of things going on, and our industry is no different than any other industry with the labor shortage. But we're seeing something even additional. What we're seeing is people want to leave for other reasons. They want to retire for other reasons, and we can't literally get people to want to do this job in sufficient numbers. I'll give you, for instance, when I took the test, there were 3,000 people. 7 years ago, we had 1,200. 5 years ago, we had 700. This year, and we did better than most departments, we attracted 120. Of that 120, 60 remained eligible. And of that 60, we need to be able to hire 11 to 12 out of that. I'm not sure if we're going to get 11 or 12. And we've never seen that, we being just law enforcement in general. So there's a lot of different things going on. But to answer your question, normally when a class graduates, we are at full staff, with the exception of 1 or 2 officers.
Okay, thank you.
The overtime park, what is that exactly? Did I miss that?
No, the overtime is broken into different categories. And so one of the things that we did, and the mayor knows this very well, is when the beaches started up again, we started seeing full capacity at the beaches. We had a lot of challenges down there. And we were seeing large numbers of people. We were seeing disturbances and fights and disorderly conduct. So we tried to address it by putting police officers there periodically, try to address it putting police officers there on weekends. But in response to what the residents want, and which was to make the beach not only safe, but feel safe, we decided to put police officers at the beaches full-time. And so that parks money will be to be able to address the hiring of additional officers on overtime to do parks and parking, which would be parks to do Eisenhower Park and to check on the beaches. Because we hire additional staff, at least we try to hire additional staff to augment the patrol officers that are divided into geographical areas and that are taking the routine calls for service.
Understood. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, anything further?
Mr. Chairman, through you to the mayor, this is just a friendly reminder. Was there still a question on the communication cost? Is that something you wanted to table, or this is just a reminder?
So to the Board of Finance, there are several line items in the proposed budget that you will see either a request was made from the department and they were zeroed out because they're being paid through grant money, for ARPA money in particular. So for example, the body worn cameras, initially we had assumed that was going to be part of the operating budget. The working group for ARPA, American Rescue Plan, They have taken that in, and we are negotiating a 5-year contract for body worn cameras so that we will not need to address it for at least 5 years. Correct, Chief? I don't know if we've negotiated that figure yet, but the ARPA group has committed to paying for that. Communication costs is another item that we're looking at, the Motorola radio system for the police. I do know that we are working with the police department and the working group for ARPA to see if we can carve that out. So we should have information that's a little bit more definitive before you meet to deliberate on the budget. But Peter, do you know whether or not that number has been agreed to by the working group for ARPA, or we're still waiting on more information?
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the committee is just waiting for more information.
Okay. So by the technical session for you folks, we should have better information, more information as to whether or not that line item is going to be removed or paid through grant money as opposed to the operating money.
Okay, I did. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Peter. I did notice the body worn camera. I assumed it was going to be dealt through grant, but I'm a little on the communication costs. That will also at least there's an attempt to have that paid for by the grants as well. Is that?
Yes, I believe it's the annual cost for the Motorola contract. It's approximately 150,000, 151,000.
I see one for 162,000. Is that it on page?
Yes, the 150 is part of that 162 on page 44.
So in addition, there's a couple of other line items that we're paying operating out of the operating budget. Several years ago, we took away the vehicles.
Right.
This year, we're paying through a grant money as opposed to the vehicle acquisition program, which is at the end of the year. We pay for all of our vehicles and equipment, public works, fire, etc. But we included the police the last 3 or 4 years as well. This year, we're paying through ARPA money. We're also proposing to pay for, or actually, I think the committee or the working group has already authorized some protective equipment, biohazard gear that has been in the budget each year now, and we have not funded because we haven't had the funding, but this is an opportunity to fund those resources. There's a couple of other items that the working group has adopted and is moving forward with. If anyone wants to go online, that proposed budget is on the main page of the city website under the ARPA account. You can take a look at some of the projects that committee is moving forward with.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very helpful. We'll look for an update. Okay, anything further for Chief Mello and the police department? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Chief.
Last but not least, animal control, page 54, I believe, 59.
Good evening. I'm Scott Ellingson. I'm the Director of Animal Control. As you can see, I'm pretty much keeping everything the same. The only things of note is I am requesting an electricity increase, and the other part is I'm transferring the funds from office equipment upkeep to copier rental because we do lease a copier now.
Thank you. You know, your heating fuel, is it oil or gas? How's that your building heated down there?
It's gas.
It is gas.
Yep.
And your rabies control, what does that actually consist of?
That runs the feral cat program where feral cats are trapped spayed, neutered, and given a rabies vaccine. If they are adoptable, then we adopt them out. If they are not, then they are released back to the colony. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That helps control the rabies and feral cat population program.
Okay, that makes sense. And then again, it's similar to my probate question, and I always, the income from the town of Orange, is that shows up on our revenue side?
No.
Or a special fund?
It goes into a special reserve fund. It's a contract that we have for Orange that may need to be renewed. I think that it's renewable unless we renegotiate something more up to date. But it's $75,000 per year that animal control can then use for a variety of related tasks or projects or programs. And in addition to that, once a week, an animal control officer is allowed to fill up his or her vehicle at the pumps at the Orange facility. Okay. So I think that's all that we get in terms of remuneration from Orange, but that's what was negotiated probably about, I don't know, 15 years ago, approximately.
It doesn't seem that long ago, but it probably has been. So that 75,000 will go into another operating or fund account and utilize for other expenses related to the department, essentially.
Yeah. Something related to animal control, for example, some of that money we've used for capital projects, like we used it for a portion of the dog park rehab. I know that we've used it for overtime for animal control on occasion. We've used it for, I believe, some upgrades to the animal control facility in the past. So we have used it to offset some of the costs associated with animal control, but there may be other things that we've used it for that Peter can remember too.
Okay. Now the cats that we control for rabies, do we drop them off in Orange when they're done?
Just the skunks.
What's our most popular call, Scott, in Milford?
The most popular call or the most weird?
Both. We want one of each.
Probably found dog seems to be the most popular, or cat hit by car.
Oh. Okay.
The weirdest one I ever went to was a gentleman had committed suicide, and he had a whole bunch of exotics. He had an Egyptian death stalker scorpion, which is like the most venomous scorpion in the world, which was pretty scary. He had emperor scorpions. He had Madagascar hissing cockroaches, a king baboon tarantula, just all weird stuff.
Wow.
What do you do with them?
And believe it or not, Rick was in charge at that time, and he arranged the Egyptian death stalker scorpion to go to a children's museum.
Wow.
But for the most part, and including that, there was a 5-foot Burmese python that actually went to an ex-police officer who was a herpetologist, and they used to take it around to schools so kids could see how big a snake can get. Yeah, that had to be the weirdest one I ever went to personally.
That would be hard to top.
Yeah, because DEP's answer to it was drop a book on everything. So,
yeah.
But we got them all homes, and then we did have an alligator at one point somebody had in their house. That we arranged to go to Beardsley Zoo. But we had to keep it until it was big enough where the other alligators wouldn't eat it. So those are the two biggest that I can remember being weird.
Excellent. Well, it's a good way to end the meeting for tonight. If there's no further questions. We will
weird is a little different than our weird.
That's it. We will recess until, well, it looks like we have a regular meeting on Monday, the 28th?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to be out of town, so unfortunately I won't be able to make Monday's meeting. I apologize in advance.
That's fine. I guess I was hoping to leave town myself, but I guess now I got to stay. Thanks, guys.
You can have my my votes.
All right, so we will do have a regular meeting at February 28th, 5:30, and then immediately following the regular Board of Finance meeting, we'll have the continuation of the budget hearings. Entertain a motion to recess until the 28th.
Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
you may want to take a poll from the 5 members of the Board of Finance as to a good date to hold the actual budget vote. I know that we have several days that are reserved for it, but just because there may be some vacations and things like that, we do want to make sure that all 5 members of the Board of Finance and Peter are available for that budget vote. Doesn't have to happen now. It could happen offline, but just within those scheduled dates, we want to make sure that, you know, the majority of not the majority, hopefully all 5 of the members will be available for the actual vote.
Yeah, it's a good point, Mr. Mayor. It'll be here before you know it. If everyone could please just check their schedules for the 16th. I know for me, I think it's a good date. It's not St. Patrick's Day. It's a day prior. It's a Wednesday, so hopefully most people will be in town. But if there are any conflicts, let me know and provide a suggested date, and we can canvass the board and see if there's a better date. But hopefully, as of now, that date works for people. But if not, please let me know, and we'll try to come up with a better date for everybody.
And just note that given the fact that COVID-19 is on the decline, we had suggested that the actual technical session and the budget vote happen in person to try to trend everybody back to getting together for that, so that there's additional opportunity for debate and discussion and a real deliberation for the budget, as opposed to having to do it virtually.
Nice to see.
I think if no one has an objection, I think that would be the plan, to meet in person. Hopefully it won't be snowing, and we could go back to the Parsons Center and meet in person. But if there's any objection, please, let me know by email or right now or whatever. Otherwise, we'll plan on meeting in person on those 2 dates.
Those in-person meetings, they supply dinner, right, Brian? Was that
They do.
I forget. It's been so long. I forget what happens.
Yep. Peter's going to bring some tacos from the place across the street here.
Perfect. I'll give you my order, Peter. Thank you.
I will make a motion to recess until Monday, the 28th?
28th, last day of the month. Spring is here. Okay, all those in favor? Well, there's a second, I'm sorry, is there a second by Scott? All those in favor? All in favor. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
Be safe.
Everyone, thank you.
Take care.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Good night.